And thanks for sticking with us here at the lunchroom on RCI. And good afternoon to everybody, and hope you've had an enjoyable lunch. And of course, as promised yesterday, I'm pleased to have with us in studio former attaché to the Prime Minister Kenny Anthony, former Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Youth Development and Sport, former CEO of the West Indies Cricket Board, former St. Lucia CIP Chair, former High Commissioner to St. Lucia to London, and the current Member of Parliament for Castries South, Dr. the Honourable Ernest Hilaire. Dr. Hilaire, tell us what we missed in that very long list of formers.
No, I'm not sure.
Hopefully we covered all the bases.
I mean, certainly you had me smiling. I must say, I've never come into RCA and been introduced in such a flattering way. So thank you very much for your introduction.
We're very glad that you could join us here on Carnival Tuesday.
Yeah,
I'm sure you may want to be a lot of other places today, possibly down in Trinidad, possibly in Dominica. It seems that their carnival is doing very, very well after Maria.
We had planned to be in Dominica this year, but some traveling kind of put off the schedule. So we decided not to go to Dominica. We were in Dominica, I think last year before. It was a really great experience, enjoying the Dominican Carnival.
Definitely. I don't think one of the things we perhaps did not catch then in that list is certainly your ties and your background in terms of the entertainment industry in St. Lucia and the creative industries. It's very, very topical at the moment, of course. It is Carnival weekend, and we saw quite a lot of rancor on social media over that famous hug. Of course, all thanks, of course, to the great victory. Coming in second place, Teddyson John winning in the International Groovy Soca Monarch competition. Did you have any thoughts about that and all that has transpired thus far?
Well, I mean, I've read a lot on social media about the hug and whatnot, and I mean, my personal position is such, and I say personal position because the Labour Party has not really discussed this matter or taken any position on it. So all what you see on social media, Facebook, is really not Labour Party. St. Lucians exchanging their views and intensely debating it. But I have my personal views on it, and let me share it with you. First of all, I, in principle, cannot be against a head of state, a minister, a prime minister supporting our artists. I would encourage it. I would appeal for it, that our leaders come out and support our sportsmen, our artists, our young students. Anytime political leadership shows support, I am for it. And when the next election is held and Philip J. becomes Prime Minister, I will say to him, support our artists, support our sportsmen, and anything he can do to inspire them to do it. But I'll tell you what disturbed me about the whole incident and what I saw. And I want people to listen to me carefully, really carefully, and especially those who want to defend and those who want to argue either way. I first listened to the Prime Minister's interview where a hostess was asking him about his, his presence in Trinidad and whatnot. And he said he had to come to support his boy, Teddyson. And I said to myself, well, why didn't he say he came to support a St. Lucian, who is an outstanding artist, and he's here to inspire him? He said he came to support his boy, Teddyson John. And then I reflected on it. And I remember, of course, the Prime Minister and Teddyson have been longtime friends. Teddyson was very involved in organizing the entertainment for the UWP in the last campaign. Teddyson was the one who recognized him at his show 2 years ago, and when the crowd booed him. Now, I like Teddyson. I think I've been to every show Teddyson has had at Euphoria. I've even decided which white shirt I'm wearing this year because I will be there. So I support Teddyson. I think he's a fantastic performer and he makes St. Lucia proud. But the Prime Minister said he went to Trinidad to support his boy Teddyson. And I remember Ambi last year. Ambi made the finals last year. He did not get a cent to give him any support at all to go to Trinidad. Ambi with his song, Ambi is from Fuasho. I assisted Ambi to go. Ambi had to go around begging for donations for he to go to Trinidad to take part in the same finals. And I'm saying, are you there to support the St. Lucian artists and to support the creative industry? Or are you there to support your boy, Teddyson John? Now, that's what I had a difficulty with. Not the fact that a political leader and Prime Minister was there supporting an artist. I had a problem with when Ambi wanted support last year, he did not get. I have a difficulty there. But let me just also continue. It also, for me, I really would like to know whether this was a PR stunt. Because for me, and let me explain to you, if you go in there to inspire the artist, so he knows you're there, you talk to him, you really big him up before, make him feel comfortable. Teddyson looked almost surprised that the Prime Minister was there. And I wondered, why did you go to, what was the support supposed to be? I would want to believe the support would have gone to give him a few words before, tell him the whole of St. Lucia is rallying behind you, give us your best, whatnot. Teddyson looked surprised, and from what I'm hearing, this was a well-orchestrated PR stunt. And comes back to the issue of credibility of our Prime Minister. Things are being done because it's a photo op. Things are being done because it's PR. And things are not being done because there is a sincere commitment to the cause and what is happening. And that I have a difficulty with, because I know there's a PR firm that has been employed by the government, doing a lot of PR for ministers and government. And you're really wondering, is this just another constructed reality? Or is this a real sincere move to go and support a St. Lucian? And I had difficulties with that. And I would like to know what was the cost of the support and the PR engagement that took place. Because I'm not saying it's not necessary. Like I say, I start off saying I support it. I want to appeal for more of it. I want to see Ambi get support. I want to see Moto get support. I want to see Ezra get support. I want to see all the artists and the sportsmen too get support. But I think it must be done in a very sincere and transparent way. If you cut the creative industry's budget and you're now supporting artists based on decisions rather than knowing there is a fund available and people can apply for support, it reduces it to who I want to support, I will support. So I'll go and support my boy this year. But if next year is not my boy that in the finals, I may not go and support him. He may not get the support. Ambi did not get support last year. So whereas I start off saying I support, the move to give the artists the resources, and I would love a Labour Party government to even do more. I think it should be done in a transparent way, an open way, and it's not about going and support your boy, Teddyson John, especially knowing the personal relationship, knowing the relationship that had in the last election, and even since then, that makes me a little uncomfortable.
So essentially what you're asking for is a lot more transparency in how creative industry is supported.
Precisely.
If that's what I'm getting
Precisely.
from you. But, I mean, if you were the Minister for Culture, do you think that would be something that you would definitely be wanting to do? I mean, being at those events, giving that kind of moral support.
Well, I go to the events in any case. For some people, it's the first time they're starting to do that. So it looks like it's a big accomplishment. When somebody who never used to go to 10 start going to 10, it looks like a big thing, and he's trying to be normal, he's trying to be okay. When somebody who never used to go to cricket now wants to shout the loudest at cricket, I am always at cricket, I'm always at tent, I go to carnival. Like I tell people, I'm a kind of introverted bacchanalist. I have some friends who really like bacchanal, and they're all over the place. I go to the events and I enjoy it. I love my calypso, and I would be there. And if a St. Lucian artist, and I'm a Minister of Culture, is taking part, I would be there before the show, let him know that I am there, encourage him and big him up and make sure he feels strong, go in and represent St. Lucia. And I think we should also do that for our sportsmen, our under-15 cricketers, our under-19, our young netballers. As the leadership of the country, we must always be inspiring our people to higher levels of achievement. What I don't like and I'm uncomfortable about is when it is given to friends or family or selected, people, whatnot. I have a difficulty with that. And for me, it has to be sincere. You have to show that it really matters to you and you're not just doing it for a photo op.
Right, but how do you balance that with people saying that, well, you should just take the positivity and let that fly?
But
no need to, because, again, he's a St. Lucian, this is his moment to shine on the international stage.
You mean Teddyson?
Yes.
Yeah.
And the fact that, this entire furore has grown, it really is taking away, it's creating some shade there.
But you see, when there's a lack of sincerity, that's what causes that. That's what I'm saying? Because it is not transparent, is what causes that. Let me tell you, Teddyson got a lot of support over the years from St. Lucia. Trust me, Teddyson has gotten support. Teddyson deserves support. Teddyson should get support. And like I tell you, I'll be at the show again this year, because I believe Teddyson is an outstanding artist. But I also believe DYP should get support. I believe Moto should get support. I think Ezra should get support. And I believe because people are not seeing across the board the same commitment to all our artists, when one person seems to be getting the favor, it will cause people to raise issue. If that was being done across the board, and people know as a matter of fact, once a St. Lucian reaches a finals in Trinidad, he'll get the same treatment, people won't say anything,
Right. And not just that, but also in terms of the sectors, because we did have a situation where there was Cara Festa in Trinidad a couple of years ago.
Exactly.
And the response coming out from the minister at the time.
Told them to find their way.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think, we definitely get very tied up sometimes in one sector and not ensure that there's a continuum of support across all the various artistic forms.
I mean, just look at, for example, and just to take it, like you said, across sectors, the government pays, whether it's CPL or St. Lucia Stars, over $900,000 contribution. But our cricket association can barely get $50,000. When you look at that, you see, you wonder why our under 15 cricketers, we have to host a tournament in St. Lucia and they're staying at guest houses in Rosalie that are best known for other activities. Meanwhile, we can give so much more to another entity coming to St. Lucia to organize some matches. And like you said, there just has to be, a level playing field, and people know that's the policy and that's the standard and that's how it's going to be done. So an Ambi from Fuasho will not feel disadvantaged, that he will not. When you think about it, Ambi made the finals last year. He did not get any support.
Right.
I know the struggles he went through to try to reach Trinidad, but then somebody else this year, who happens to be my boy, gets everything put out for him.
You turn into the whole issue of sport, and of course we have cricket today coming up at the Darren Sammy National Cricket Ground, and you were very instrumental many moons ago in terms of the entire development of what was then the Beausejour Cricket Grounds. Are you satisfied as where we are now in terms of sports development? And particularly in terms of the thrust towards sports tourism. I mean, we heard that, yes, you have an England team coming in. You have quite a large number of people coming in from the Army. But beyond that, this one fillip of, maybe over a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Are you satisfied with where we are in terms of sports tourism?
No, I'm not. And I think at the parliamentary debates on where we discussed the sports plan and the consultancy for the Packer Group, the $42 million that the Packer Group is getting. And I must add, it is a consultancy that there was absolutely no tendering for. And I think it's, from what the government experienced, consultancy and some construction. I believe it's misplaced. I think the focus of the government right now is entirely misplaced. In 1997, if you'd recall, there was no national cricket facility in St. Lucia. There was no national stadium. And there was a significant dearth of, quality sporting facilities in St. Lucia. There were a few courts in St. Lucia and a few playing fields. We set out then to enhance the national sporting facilities in St. Lucia. So we built what was then the Beausejour Cricket Ground. We built the national stadium. We built courts. We significantly expanded the number of courts and playing fields in St. Lucia. But the next phase had to be spent on development programs. And I think more and more monies must be put into supporting young athletes. We need to build a sports culture in St. Lucia, and we need to start off by promoting participation in sports. And that has to be done at the earliest ages. So for us now, monies have to be spent not on putting synthetic playing surfaces around the island, something which I think is totally misguided, and it is something which will, in the years to come, we will have to revisit in St. Lucia. I would love to see more money being spent. We have some of the best young cricketers in our history right now, under 15 cricketers, and you really have to ask, what is the state doing to subsidize the Cricket Association and to subsidize the academies that are producing those youngsters? I mean, only yesterday, I think a young man from Antripo scored his second century in the school's cricket competition. And I mean, I think they defeated John Odom Memorial. And you have to, when you start hearing of a young man at that age scoring consecutive centuries, you have to start focusing on what's the talent that's there and where's the support for him to move out. Because cricket is an expensive sport. And I always say to people, and you can look at it, Calix, there are only 2 sports right now in St. Lucia that we are competitive at an early age group. Let me explain to you. Kimani Melius, at his age, 18 years or whatnot, is among the best 18-year-old batsmen in the world. The young lady from Sisera, Alfred, at her age, and she won the gold, whatnot, she's among the best in the world. So in cricket and track and field, at those early ages, we are as good as anybody in the world. Or we can produce athletes that are among the best in the world at that age group. It doesn't happen for football, it doesn't happen for karate, it doesn't happen for swimming, it doesn't happen for netball. But those 2 sports, we have a natural talent where we can be among the best in the world at a junior level. And therefore, I believe we have to give a priority to those 2 sports, track and field and cricket. Because these are the 2 sports, at an early age, we are already world class. And therefore, we can achieve a lot more. You're following me?
Right. But that would have to be a little controversial, of course, for the other sports. I mean, some people would say that, if we had more swimming facilities, we would be better off. Or if we maybe even had, programs that start even in the preschools and the primary schools for football, we could actually become, a country. Yeah, of course, football is a far more competitive sport as well, worldwide, as compared to cricket.
Yeah.
So I know there would definitely be some controversy as to, what sports that you end up choosing.
Well, I hear you and I agree with you. We need to invest in the other sports. But if you tell me in cricket you can produce world-class young cricketers, why should you not do it? Because you want judo and wrestling to now become to that level. Those things take generations to transform the levels of performance. But I guess we can argue.
What do you think about the suggestion that we should create a new sports academy, conversion of the Grosley sports, Grosley Secondary School into a sports academy? Well, is that the kind of direction that you think we should be going to?
I have asked repeatedly for details on exactly what the concept behind it, and I'm not sold on the little that I've heard. I'm not sold. I think every school secondary school that is, should have sporting excellence programs. Every secondary school. I think beyond secondary school, we should have a dedicated sports academy, but not at the level of secondary school.
So at the post-secondary level?
Post-secondary. Yeah. Because why, if my child is an outstanding athlete, but she's also an elite academic student, should I take her out from the St. Joseph's Convent and send her to the Grosley Secondary School? What's the concept? I don't know what the concept is. And in typical fashion of this government, they don't want to say much. There's not a lot of transparency in what happens. Because why would, if your child is interested in the arts, you have to take out your child and send her to the Angers Secondary School or wherever will be the center for the arts. I believe at the secondary school, across the board, we must have programs of excellence. Post-secondary, we can then have programs that can accommodate those athletes and those students. When we had built the National Stadium in Vieux Fort, we had actually asked the Chinese to leave all the accommodation facilities they had there, because we were thinking of having weekend programs, residential programs, where our athletes can actually go and spend weekends there and to be dedicated to their sport, whichever one it was, football or track and field. So I'm still waiting to hear exactly what's the concept for those and the schools of excellence. There's not a lot that has been put out for public debate and public discussion. But we heard they were supposed to have started last year, September. It did not start last year, September. We're told it's going to start this year, September. So I'm still waiting to hear exactly what the concept is.
Is there any update that you can share with us in terms of the whole Parker Group and the proposal for new sports centers at Soufrière and Nico?
From what we were told in Parliament, the Soufrière mini stadium would have been open for independence. We're already in March. I don't know that the facility is near finished or even started. But I can tell you, the decision to build synthetic playing facilities to replace the natural turf is a gross error by this government, and they should not proceed along those lines for a number of reasons. And I think I went through all of them during the budget debate on that aspect of borrowing. For example, just a simple thing. In Soufrière, if you're going to remove the natural turf and put synthetic, cricket cannot be played there anymore. So you now need to go and build a new cricket field elsewhere for cricket to take place. When are you going to do that? Why are you incurring that extra cost? What's the added benefit of having a synthetic turf? You have shows in Soufrière, Casa, Burning Flave, Jack Cure. Are you going to have the same concerts on that artificial turf? Now, there are some places where you do have concerts on artificial turf, but then you'll have to ensure there's an absolutely no smoking. Because the moment people smoke and they out their cigarettes and they're on the turf, absolutely no bottles that can be broken. Because if they break on that artificial turf, there's so many reasons why in a country like ours, and I keep saying, having natural turf is cheaper to maintain than synthetic. Having natural turf at a world-class level is just as expensive as synthetic. But at a community level, it is cheaper. Because you do not need to have the Darren Sammy National Cricket Ground standard of surface at a community ground. So it's just totally, misconceived. But I guess the whole intention was somebody wanted to help somebody, and the country will lose $42 million, not lose, but spend $42 million in the process.
These issues, the creative industries, sport, they're very dear to a lot of young people out there. And they see them as opportunities for improvement and growth. Quite recently, we saw a UNICEF report coming out suggesting that 1 in 3 adolescents is actually
19,
poor. Between 10 and 19 is actually poor. We clearly seem to still have a very long way to go in terms of support for young people. I mean, you had the experience as PS there. What do you think in terms of a Labour Party government would be some direction that you'd be going there? Because, I mean, the majority of people right now are post-independence babies.
Yes.
People born after 1979, millennials. Do you see any real message coming out of the Labour Party regarding young people?
Well, I mean, Labour Party historically has had a commitment to young people. I mean, you look at Labour Party in 1997, Mario Michel, who was the Deputy Prime Minister then, had been a President of the National Youth Council. You had, Damian Greaves, who came out of the National Youth Council. You had a number of persons who came out of the NYC. Even now, I mean, you look at Sean Edwards, who was the president of the Mabuya Valley Youth and Sports Council. You look at myself, who came out of the student movement, came out of the Youth Council. You look at Gibbon Ferdinand, who came out of the Deriso Youth and Sports Council. You look at Jerome Gideon, who came out of the Denry Youth and Sports Council. And, I can go around and show you so many of those leaders that we have within the Labour Party actually came out of the youth movement. And I think part of it is because when you come out of the youth movement, you develop a strong social conscience and a strong sensitivity for development at the community level. So there's a natural attraction in the Labour Party for many of the youth leaders because of that social agenda. I mean, you asked the question about the Labour Party and the state of youth in this country. A Labour Party in government must create a priority in favor of youth, period. For me, there's no argument about that. There's no debate about that. We must create a priority in favor of youth. We must be able to create the conditions and create a conducive social environment to allow our young people to achieve their dreams, their aspirations, and their ideals as much as possible. We don't have to be idealistic and believe that everything young people want, they will get it. But when you start off, as this government does, to say that people are mendicants when they need assistance, when you start by telling them there's no free lunch, when you start off by saying that you want to privatize Arthur Lewis Community College and students will have to find money and choose which school they go into, as against stating I have a commitment to the education of the young, that's the wrong premise you start off from. It's not a premise that favors young people. A Labour Party must never go down that road. At least a Labour Party that I will be part of cannot go down that road. We have to make sure that we cater to the aspirations of our young people, the young people who need to go to school. There's something which I hold dear to me. I believe, and that's my personal view, we should have universal preschool education in St. Lucia.
Well, wasn't that promised by a Labour Party government?
It was, and that's what I'm telling you. Yeah, it was promised that we must have it, Alex, because too many children start off in infant school already at a disadvantage. And I know as a parliamentary rep, there's so many parents who come to you for assistance because they cannot pay their fees for their children, even the government schools.
But then what do you tell the young people who hear from politicians quite often these same promises, but when they see it as lip service essentially, because when the governments come into to play, they still don't see the support, the incentives, the regime, the youth mainstreaming that you're talking about. And you face with a lot of frustration amongst a lot of young people, which of course leads to migratory flight as well.
Again, you get into government and you have to face, I guess, the reality is the size of the pie and how you divide the pie. We have to say to young people, and you're right, we have to demonstrate to young people exactly how we're going to share the pie. And I was very proud to be part of the Labour Party in government. Certainly when we built the cricket ground, the stadium, NSDC, the James Belgrave Fund, we did a lot of those things to integrate young people, to give them opportunities. We had an approach that every board had to have a youth representative on it to make sure youth was involved in decision making. And I was proud of those were the starts of a long-term project to mainstream young people. And I think all governments must commit themselves to mainstreaming youth and the youth agenda.
What about procurement? I mean, you hear the famous thing, of course, this company can't get through with a bid because they don't have enough experience or they don't have enough backing.
Yeah. But again, it comes back to having a clear stated policy that if you want to create conditions for young people to prosper and for young entrepreneurs, and let me tell you, I strongly believe when I hear certain companies getting $24 million, you hear Ojo Labs getting $10 million, it pains me because I know we have young people in St. Lucia who are dreaming of becoming young entrepreneurs. And we need to create the environment to be able to assist them. And there are so many administrative hurdles. And trust me, one of these is maybe when I retire, I will explain and share information with how we came to build the Bosejo Cricket Ground. It was not easy fighting certain persons who had a very bureaucratic approach to the allocation of resources in the country. I mean, there was a lot of fight back saying we should not build the Bosejo Cricket Ground because it's not affordable and we will not be able to maintain it and it will become a white elephant. And there was a fight to make sure we had that cricket ground.
You mentioned Ojo Labs, of course. That has been one of the Prime Minister's flagship investments. You are the spokesperson, I believe, for the St. Lucia Labour Party for investment and tourism. And that is also another frustrating thing, I think, for a number of people out there. Whenever we hear of investment, we equate that to tourism. What do you see right now in terms of the investment climate and how things are going? We were promised, I think, $1.5 billion US worth of investment by the Prime Minister in the beginning of 2017.
Yes.
And of course, this year we are told about execute.
Yeah.
Are you seeing that? Do you believe that a number of those projects are going to be coming on stream?
Well, there's been no project that has started. I mean, if anybody think I'm wrong, can you tell me where is the big investment project that has started in the last, I think the government has been in power for about 2 years and 9 months. You've not seen it, despite we were promised so many, like you say, almost $2 billion in investment would come. I had a difficulty with Ojo Labs, colleagues, because I'm not against government supporting investment. I'm not against government providing line of financing for investment. I had a difficulty with St. Lucians not being mobilized or not being encouraged to get that kind of support for an investment. Do not tell me that there are no St. Lucians, no group of St. Lucians that can come together and get the same measure of support and start a call center. The big deal about artificial intelligence, come on, anybody that go online to read, anybody who's reading magazines, reading books will tell you artificial intelligence is not anything new.
I think we have a few entrepreneurs.
Of course we do.
Linford Favre started
we
very
do.
early
I mean, I don't want to call names. Yeah, I didn't want to call names.
There's a new one that opened up, I believe,
exactly.
in North as well.
And I'm sure we can encourage St. Lucians to come and to start call centers too. I mean, it's painful because, you ask yourself, why should someone from overseas come and get that level of support and local entrepreneurs cannot get it? And that was my difficulty with that. And I believe too much of our investment is aimed at foreign direct investment and not the mobilization of St. Lucians to see how best we can give them the same state resources for them to be able to invest and for them to be able to create a national capital base based from, premise on our people being able. Our people have talent. Our people have know-how. They don't have resources like some of the foreign entities. And even then, it's painful again when you had the same foreign entities come to St. Lucia like DSH and not bringing money onto the table. So, okay, they know the know-how, they know how to put things together, and they come with a beautiful story. And then the state gives them everything they need for them to start the investment. And again, I believe in moving forward, the Labour Party government will have to create a priority towards our local entrepreneurs. And we have to say to our local people, become rich too. Why should we be afraid to say to the aspiring young entrepreneur, the aspiring businessman, that you can become rich? I may not want to be rich. You may not want to be rich. But the fact is there are people who are entrepreneurs, and there are people who want support so they can invest and build businesses, and we have to say to them, we will give you that support.
Quite recently, I think about a week ago, there was a press release on the Galaxy investment at Canals.
Yeah.
Could you maybe tell us a bit about that? It's supposed to be an AM Resorts project. Two hotels in one. Zotri and a Secrets brand, I believe. And that is definitely being touted as a very major investment for the South, and the promise of quite a number of jobs at Honeymoon Beach.
Yeah. I mean, at the last sitting of Parliament, the member for Ancillary Canaries, Honorable Dominic Philly, trying to counter a statement that was made which said that DSH was a CIP project, came with a letter. Now, the Prime Minister is the one who said DSH the CIP. The Prime Minister actually said the investor would upfront the money and he'll get it back from the sale of our passports, which means that it's a CIP project, or it will become a CIP project. It may not yet be approved as such, but the Prime Minister saying that he would get back his money for the sale of our passport means that it would become a CIP project. And in the letter that was submitted to Parliament by Dominic Fede and was signed by Ernest Alfred, the Chief Executive Officer, they identify about 6 real estate projects that have been approved by CIP. There are a couple of them. There is one, the Ridge Boutique property. I don't know if anybody in Central has heard of that. It was approved in October 2016. There is the Regis at 4Bay Beachfront Resort, also approved in October 2016. I don't know that any St. Lucia has even heard that such a hotel would be built in St. Lucia, but it's already approved as a CIP project. There is the Canals Resort Associates, the developer. The project name is the Honeymoon Beach Resort. It was approved in September 4th, 2017. And there's the Canals Resort by Caribbean Galaxy Real Estate Limited, which was approved on the 10th of December 2018.
So there are 2 projects. You said Honeymoon Beach and Canals,
right, and Canals. The one
same area.
Apparently the same area, because the developer is the Canals Resort Associates Limited, the Honeymoon Beach Resort, which was approved in September 2017. Now, let's focus on the Galaxy, which was approved in December 2018. I would love CIP. And colleagues, I'm not attacking professionals. I have spent many years as a professional in the public service and in the private sector overseas. I'm not attacking professionals. But there comes a time when, of course, you have to ask questions. This letter was submitted to Parliament, signed by the head of the CIP. I would love the head of the CIP to give us information on what basis was Galaxy approved as a CIP project. And that's in December 2018. That's 2 months ago. Everyone knows what's happening in St. Kitts with Galaxy.
What is happening in St. Kitts with
It's been many years, going on to more than 4 years, that Galaxy has started a hotel in St. Kitts and cannot complete it. And more so, and listen to this carefully, Phase 1 was not completed. The passports for Phase 1, from what you would read, has already been sold. Phase 2...
You're speaking about Galaxy
in St. Kitts.
Okay.
Phase 2 is already being sold, but Phase 1 cannot finish yet, although it's been sold out. And so much so that in the last few days, and a letter has been published in the media, where a Kittitian is betting with Galaxy $5 million that they cannot finish the hotel in September, because Galaxy has announced that the hotel will be finished in September and it will be open for business. And a Kititian has put his hand up and said, look, I'm betting $5 million with you. I'm putting my money in an escrow, put your money in an escrow. If in September this year, this hotel is not finished, you lose your $5 million. If it's finished, I lose my $5 million. Because you will see all the video clippings. And trust me, Alex, if you want the video clippings, it can be arranged for you to get it from journalists in St. Kitts. That hotel has not been finished in more than 4 years, going on to 5 and 6 years. It cannot be finished. But this same company applies to build 2 hotels in St. Lucia and gets approval as a CIP approved project. Now, you've sold phase 1 in St. Kitts, you cannot finish phase 1. You're selling phase 2 in St. Kitts, and you still cannot finish phase 1. You said you will finish by September this year. Somebody is betting with you $5 million. This is a very bold thing for somebody to come and put $5 million on the table and say to you, you're a fraud. You can never finish this hotel in time. And
this person who's making the bet, is he an investor himself? Or?
Well, the person probably has some vested interest, or the person might be somebody who's seen what's happening in St. Kitts and wants to expose it as a sham. Because they were also talking in St. Kitts that investment options were being sold at below price by a certain investor. Now, that's of concern to us, because according to our regulations, there's a minimum amount you have to sell your investment options. How is it that that company, what due diligence was done on Galaxy? Did a CIP unit do an assessment of what Galaxy is doing in St. Kitts? Their track record, what have they achieved? What have they done before we approve them to be a project in St. Lucia? And I really want to know, and the fact that this letter was signed by the head of the unit and it's submitted as an official document of Parliament, the question has to be asked, what due diligence did the CIP unit do on Galaxy for it to cause, or for that project to be approved as a CIP project?
So you'll be asking that question in Parliament
the question
as
will
a
be
formal
asked.
submission?
It will be asked. It will be asked. Now, you can compare that with another project. Look at Range. Range has built a Park Hyatt in St. Kitts. Range has almost finished the Kempinski in Dominica. And Range came to St. Lucia. And the Range scandal still has to be explained by this government. Why is it we had an investor is coming to St. Lucia, he's built a hotel in St. Kitts, he's finishing one in Dominica, and he's ready to build one in St. Lucia. And he ends up walking away with $20-something million in his pocket. And he does not understand why.
Dr. Hilaire, I think we're going to have to take a break for the weather. So we'll definitely be coming back and speaking a lot more about investment. And of course, you can tell us a little bit more about Range.
Sure.
Thank you very much. And welcome back to the lunchroom, where we indeed will be educating, informing, and illuminating today. And I'm your host, Alex George Jr. In a little while, we'll take your calls at 452-3046. That's 452-3046. And you can also email us lunchroom, one word, lunchroom at rcistlucia.com. And of course, you can also send your comments via our live feed on Radio Caribbean International's Facebook page. Thank you for following us. And welcome back, Dr. Hilaire. You were telling us about the situation with the Black Bay project, the Range project, I believe it was.
Yes.
And it was a CIP project, but it seems that the developers have gone their own way.
Yeah, I mean, this was a project which was signed by the Labour Party for building a project, because the Labour Party likewise wanted to promote a number of developments in the south. Of course, once the government changed, the Prime Minister announced that he was changing the arrangement.
Now, this was the second incarnation of this Black Bay project. Right. There was a project before.
Exactly. So exactly. The first incarnation, remember, Ritz-Carlton Hotel, and when there was a global...
Which was originally also a Labour Party project. It started under the Labour Party government.
Yes, but it was finalized in the United Workers' Party.
And it was finalized under the United Workers' Party.
And it was a total fiasco, because the arrangement that was made when everything fell through ended up the people of St. Lucia lost all the Black Bay and Canals land. When the Labour Party came back into power, Dr. Anthony and the Labour Party then decided that those lands could not be left in the hands of a foreign bank, and paid almost $60 million or whatever to get back the lands.
Okay. So the Range project is dealing with the Black Bay side of things, and the Galaxy project is dealing with the Canal side of the same lands that were originally
lost, and the Labour Party bought it back for the people of St. Lucia.
Okay.
So when Range came, Range liked the area in Black Bay and said, look, can we buy that land from you so we can build a hotel there? So arrangements were made with Range. Once they had met all the necessary approvals, the land would be sold to them and they can build a hotel using the CIP model that they had used to build a Park Hyatt in St. Kitts and used to build a Kempinski in Dominica. They would use the same model to build another Ritz-Carlton in St. Lucia.
Okay.
The Prime Minister then, Alan Chastney, changed it. And he said to the gentleman, rather than use a real estate option where you find investors to invest in the hotel, and once they agree to invest in the hotel, they qualify for citizenship in St. Lucia, he's going to do it differently. He, the developer can bring in all his applicants, make donations to the National Economic Fund, and the government now would take the money in the National Economic Fund and give it to the developer as a loan at 2%.
So was there some agreement between the government, a signed agreement between the government and Range?
And Range, yeah. To replace the original MOU that they had from the time of the Labour Party.
Right, because I think this is what the Prime Minister was talking about, developing a sort of a sovereign fund, a sovereign wealth fund.
Yes, I mean, he's spoken a lot about sovereign fund, and since then we've heard nothing on the sovereign fund. And ironically, I would like to know how much money was spent on the consultancy to come up with the concept of a sovereign fund. Because up to now, we've not launched a sovereign fund, but monies were paid out to a consultant to come up with a concept for a sovereign fund. But that's another story for another day.
Right.
So Range now brought in significant amount of applicants for the CIP.
Okay.
And from what we were told, from the member for ancillary, Dominic Fede, they brought in between 15 million US to 24 million US dollars worth of applicants.
Right.
According to the agreement, that money was supposed to be made available to Range as a loan for Range to start the hotel. We learned that Range announced that they were not getting the necessary support from the government and things were not working out the way they're supposed to work out. And we heard the Prime Minister say in Parliament that he's hoping everything can be resolved by July 1st. And the Prime Minister admitted that the difficulties were the fault of the government and he accepted responsibility for the failings of the project thus far.
So help us out. What would have transpired that would have caused the difficulty with the government to live up to
that
their
is a
end of
big
the bargain?
question. That is
was it a cash flow issue?
That is a big question, because if the gentleman brought in the passports, and according to Dominic Fede, he brought in about $50 million worth, that money is supposed to be in the National Economic Fund. The Prime Minister, according to the laws of the CIP, cannot spend or should not spend the money of the National Economic Fund unless he comes to Parliament for approval. And we told him so. So where is the Range $50-something million? Where was it?
You were suggesting in Parliament that there was some payout that had to be made to Range.
Right.
Subsequently.
So at the end of it, Range threatened to sue the government, and they end up negotiating a settlement. So Range was paid over $6 million for the land that they had purchased. Range then claimed they wanted commission, like a promoter, on every applicant they brought to the country, and they were given it, which is wrong. Range is not a promoter and ought not to receive commission, but that was part of the settlement. Then Range claimed expenses, all the drawings, all the architects, all the engineers, and then they claim damages. And at the end of the day, I had heard that Range from people in the industry were saying that Range was going to get over $20 million in settlement. From what Honorable Dominic Fede said,
this is 20 million EC dollars.
EC, yeah. I'm not sure whether he got his maths right, but he was suggesting maybe more than that, almost $30-something million. But the point is, here is an investor who comes to your country. He built a hotel in St. Kitts, he built one in Dominica, he wants to build one in St. Lucia. He brings on the applicants, but then he cannot get the money to start the hotel. Or whatever reason, monies are not available to him. What has to be done is not being done for him to start the hotel. And the developer walks away with at least $20-something million. Khalid, something must be wrong with that. There must be a national inquiry into that Range scandal. You cannot have an investor just come to your country and he's living with $20-something million in a suitcase because you had to settle with him. Somebody needs to tell us, the people of St. Lucia, what happened with that project. what were the circumstances that ended with a developer just leaving the country with $20 odd million of our passport sales?
Is there anything that could have been done, perhaps, even in terms of the restructuring? You were very involved in the structuring of the CIP to ensure some greater transparency in terms of the agreements that the CIP itself could sign with other investors. Because it seems as if, there's a lot of unknowns between if CIP is signing on to something with an investor that's beyond the normal transactions of the CIP, like what you were suggesting happened
I
with
don't
Rage.
think so.
No.
Well, I think this is one thing. You can have the most magnificent...
But can a parliamentarian request that information, perhaps?
Well,
through parliamentary questions?
Well, you as a parliamentarian, you can ask a question and you will get an answer. I don't know that you can force the government to bring a confidential business agreement in Parliament. You might have to go to court and get a judicial review and cause disclosure and discovery, whatnot, and for documents to be put before the courts. But I don't even think the issue is in the agreement, because the developer signed an agreement. Things were supposed to happen by a certain day. They did not happen, and he threatened to sue. Someone need to tell us what happened. Was there an interest saying, do not build a hotel there? Was there somebody saying, do not let this gentleman build a hotel there? Was there the monies used for other purposes? But if the monies were used for other purposes, how did you get money to reimburse him?
Have we seen any indication as to what the CIP monies have been going towards thus far?
No. There's been no... And we come back to what the law says. The law says you must come to Parliament. And the Prime Minister has said that we all along told him he has to come to Parliament. And he admitted and said he's been using the money until his Attorney General told him it was wrong to be using the money.
What quantum has been collected thus far from what you know?
From the CIP report, it was tabled in Parliament this year, is almost $30 million.
For the past financial
For the last financial year. Yeah. It was not much for the previous year because the program had just started. Right. I think they barely had 30 odd applications, 36 or something like that.
We'd definitely like to take your calls at this point in time. The number is 452-3046. That's 452-3046. In terms of the CIP moving forward, has that injured it in respect to the confidence that people have in it, in terms of people looking to get passports or to investors? How is that affecting the overall scenario of investment?
Calix, when you consider, and I read the CIP report which was tabled in Parliament, and we speak about the successes and the advancement. For the financial year, from April 2017 to March 2018, there were over 300 applications. So Dominica is doing almost 300 a month. A month. We did 300 odd in a year. And Dominica is the same rate as us.
Right.
St. Kitts, in about 4 months, they announced a hurricane relief fund special program, was doing over 300 a month. So there are countries like St. Kitts, Dominica doing over 300 a month. We did 300 in a year. Yeah.
Well, we're going to take our first call for the day. Good afternoon and welcome to the lunchroom.
Hello?
Good afternoon and welcome to the lunchroom. What's on your plate today?
Hello, is this Radio Caribbean?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Is the line open? Because
yes, it
somebody
is.
wants to do a contribution towards...
Go right ahead.
Sorry?
Go right ahead.
Good afternoon.
And please turn off your radio or whatever you're listening on.
Hello?
Okay, I think we're going to have to cut that call. Unfortunately, they were listening to themselves a little bit too much there.
Yeah, so I say when you consider there are countries that are, processing almost 300 applications a month, and we did 300 odd in an entire year. I don't know why we boasting that we are so successful.
We're hearing of Dominica planning on going ahead with a new international airport in the north and using its CIP funds for that purpose. It's been planning on that project for quite some time. And of course, we have the corollary here of an international airport being funded from debt. Very, very controversial issue.
But Dominica also using money to build houses for middle and low income.
Right.
In Dominica, you know what the monies have been used for. In St. Kitts, you know what the money have been used for. In Antigua, you know. St. Lucia is probably the only jurisdiction where nobody knows what the CIP monies have been used for.
Well, okay, we have another call coming in at this point in time. Good afternoon and welcome to the lunchroom.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yes, sir. Can I speak to Mr. Khalid George, please?
You're speaking. Go right ahead.
Yes,
and Dr.
Mr.
Hilaire.
Khalid George, there is murder taking place in Choiseul on the beach. As a former Minister of Communications and Works, I want you to come there.
No, you have the wrong. You have the wrong.
The media. There is a man because he's a supporter of the party. He's murdering the beach. Come and see. I want you to bring down the media to show you all the damage that have been taking place in Choiseul. I have spoken to the district rep. He has speak to this man because he's a supporter of the party. He believes he has the power. He was there before the district rep. He has been support. I am a former supporter of the St. Lucia Labour Party, the United Workers Party, the St. Lucia Labour Party. How many times? You know who is speaking there? This is Webby. I sure you know me. I've attended meeting in Debrel together with you.
Which beach are you talking about, caller?
You call yourself as the mafia of Choiseul. I can remember at a service in Choiseul. You say you all wanted to write a book. I want you as a former mafia of the Choiseul people to come and see the murder that's taking place in Choiseul. Please, come and bring down the media to show you all. They're ready to throw down the rocks. We need help in Choiseul. Please come and assist us, the fishermen of Choiseul. Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, then. Thank you very much, caller. I think he's got the wrong individual, but that's quite fine nonetheless. And we weren't able to.
Good genes, so.
I'm not sure what beach he's referring to. I'm not sure if it's related to the Sabuisha beach, where there was a project there as well.
We'll have to find out.
But yes, you were telling us. We were discussing in terms of the monies for CIP.
Yes,
and it being used for, of course, a lot of good causes
in other jurisdictions.
In other jurisdictions. In terms of right now and the airport project going ahead, we saw the government go for a loan of $100 million US with respect to the Hilaire International Airport. We have a call. Good afternoon and welcome to the lunchroom. What's on your plate today?
Hi, good afternoon, gentlemen. Good show so far. I'm trying to run away from my radio. I just need to put my piece on the Tennyson John saga that's going on.
Sure, go right ahead.
We have to applaud our previous government because I recall listening and hearing our present government and Prime Minister complaining about the amount of money that was spent on taking him to New York. But without that and having him on Central Park, on the Parkway of New York City, the world would not have seen Tennyson John to have given him all the applause that he got on Friday night in Trinidad. And it's because sometimes we have to take baby steps. Yes, I'm not sure if it was probably right to have had our Prime Minister, and I'm hoping he had security because he is our Prime Minister of St. Lucia. And it would be at a cost, because to me, that was putting our Prime Minister right there, vulnerable in the public. You understand? I know we have ministers that support or that is in charge of the culture, including, the calypso and the soca. To me, I find it was a little, in spite of I'm hearing a lot of good things and bad things about it, my take was security. My take was it necessary? My take was it something just to make you look good, like you said, the PR? But my thing about it too is without Tennyson and previous governments in the past, be it was Labour or UWP, he had been supported and exposed. But I remember we got, the Labour Party got chastised for the expense that was going through him. But today, congratulations to him. He has put us one step further when it comes to calypso and soca and our culture on the map again. And because of that, and while we are criticizing the amount of money spent, but of course a lot of money spent, but we have to also remember we have hospitals that are not finished. We have schools that need help. And yet, our government is now parading all over the place, spending the money. I listened very closely to our secretary, our Prime Minister's secretary, whatever her name is called. Let me tell you something. That was a poor description of explaining to me why it was justified. Every time a cameraman in this young lady's face, she does not know the answer to the question.
Right. Thank you, caller. Thank you very much. we're going to have to take it there because we're trying to get as many calls in as possible. I think you made your point very clearly there.
Yeah.
Any comments as to what the caller had to
I
say?
mentioned my position that I would love the artists to get support, and she just said some very good historical reminders. I mean, when Dr. Anthony, when Vitalis was running Invest Solutions, then NDC, we started up the Creative Industries fund and support being given to artists to support them whatnot so they can record whatnot. So that has been going on for a while, giving support to artists. My difficulty was I came here to support my boy, Teddy St. John, rather than I came to support a solution. And I would love to see Ambi get support. I'd love to see Ezra get support. I'd love to see DYP get support. I want to see everybody get support, not just my boy.
Right. Thank you very much for that, Dr. Hilaire. But coming back to the whole issue of the airport and investment, we had a situation where you had a public-private partnership, which was being promoted, and then you had the government pulling that away. Do you think that is going to send a certain signal to the investment world after you spend so much time and energy in terms of developing a PPP and then shifting it very abruptly?
Well, I mean, it's again the contradictions in the government. It's almost as if the government is schizophrenic. You reject the PPP for the airport because you said, we don't want to give foreigners to own our airport. But you want to do PPP for the hospital. You want to do PPP for Fish Marketing Corporation. So, on one hand, PPP is bad as a concept. And I actually heard people defending that we should not let people own our airport, we should do no PPP. But they would allow it for the hospital and they would allow it for the Fish Marketing Corporation.
Let's take this call, which is coming in here, right here. Good afternoon and welcome to the lunchroom. What's on your plate today?
Yeah, good afternoon, Mr. Hilaire, and good afternoon, Mr.
George.
Mr. Calix George Jr.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Here's my question. If a new SLP administration comes in at the next election, are you prepared to have a special department for general services and procurement, properly legislated, independent, to take care of every bid, so we have transparency? So whenever there's a bid and people want to see what happened, it opens at a specific time. People are invited to hear the numbers. And then 21 days after, anybody could come and see all the numbers as they lay out. Are we ready to do that if you have with a new administration?
I think you're talking about freedom of information, caller. Thank you very much.
No. But let me answer you.
I am not talking about freedom of information. I'm deliberately asking for a separate department.
Yeah. Can I answer you?
Procurement and general services. That's number one.
Right.
And my second question is, are we willing in a new labor administration to implement new rules, regulations, and laws for direct awards? That is my question. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, caller. Could we just hold that reply and let's just take the other call one time? Good afternoon and welcome to the lunchroom. What's on your plate today?
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Hi,
a
good
question
afternoon.
for Honorable Hilaire. I know he mentioned the issues with the range group, but I could recall when he made certain announcements as to the amount of money paid out to the range group. The minister then said that he was promising rather a joint statement between the range group and the government. Where are we with this statement? Thank you.
All right, free question. The first one, the caller spoke about a department for general procurement and procurement general services. In fact, I remember Dr. Anthony previously spoke about setting up an office or contractor general,
right,
which would
as in
Jamaica, which would do exactly what he asked for, to oversee the procurement and oversee the issuing of contracts and the administration of contracts. And then, I mean, he and that is something which is, quite necessary, and I think we can certainly go down that road. The last caller spoke about the joint statement, and I think we've been asking for the joint statement. Honorable Bradley Felix said there was going to be a joint statement. Honorable Dominic Fide said there was going to be a joint statement, but we've still not heard the joint statement. And we will ask at the appropriate time in Parliament, where is the joint statement from both parties that indicate to the people of Senegal exactly how much money was paid to Range and why was it paid? Because this is a vexing question. Nobody can answer. Why is it that Range as a developer, left our shores with $20-odd million. $20-odd million lost to the Treasury. And nobody can account for where the CIP monies are going in this country. Calix, this has to be a major issue. Where is the CIP money? What's been done with the CIP money?
Let's just take one more call. It's probably going to be our last call. Good afternoon and welcome to the lunchroom. What's on your plate today?
Good afternoon, Calix. Good afternoon, Honorable Hilaire.
Hi, good afternoon.
Calix, it's just like you mentioned a short while ago. I think a Freedom of Information Act would solve a lot of the problems that we're currently facing in St. Lucia in terms of information that is needed vis-a-vis, a host of problems that we have in this country. And that Freedom of Information Act shouldn't just be something whereby we have the act so that if somebody wants information and the government is not forthcoming in terms of the information, that the person has to or the group has to take the government to court. Because the thing is, we know how the court system works. The thing is, the Freedom of Information Act should be crafted in such a manner that it would give certain government officials, it would speed up the process, so to speak, in terms of whoever is requesting the information, to get that information as quickly as possible from the government officials that they're supposed to get it from, without having to force the government by way of the courts to get that information. Thanks.
Thank you very much, caller.
Yeah.
And indeed, I suppose whistleblowers would have less of a bad name as well, I think.
But it's also there's a deeper issue to what the caller is saying, Calix. I agree with him and saying about taking the government to court if they don't give you the information. But we can go to court now and ask for judicial review. But we don't do it because it costs money.
And it costs money and the length of time it takes to get to the court.
I mean, it can be expeditious, but it costs money and you need to hire a lawyer to do it. The average man cannot afford the lawyer. And the same thing with the Freedom of Information Act. If you're going to have a Freedom of Information Act, it must be very simple and very cheap for somebody to be able to go to court and get the government to release the information. Otherwise, you'll have the laws, and then the government is saying they're not giving the information, and you don't have the money to take the government to court. Because we write laws and we put procedures in place and we expect people will always be honorable. The Act for the CIP says that the Prime Minister must come to Parliament for approval for the use of the monies, and he blatantly does not do it.
Will we be seeing that in a new government coming in for the Labour Party?
We have to do it.
In terms of transparency,
yes,
freedom of information legislation,
we have to.
Whistleblower legislation.
We have to do it because if we are demanding good governance and we're demanding that things are done better and then the empowerment of the citizenry to be able to know what's happening in the country, we have to make it easier. And I've certainly learned from the CIP experience that you do not, put provisions in place believing people will be honorable and noble in their actions. And I'm sorry, but that's the reality.
I mean, we've even seen we have procurement legislation, for instance, which was passed in Parliament.
Because the caller originally asked about, the legislation, and you're right. In fact, that was the response to him, that arising out of consultations with the CDB, there was a request for a new procurement act, which has been before this government for more than 2.5 years. It has not been passed in Parliament.
No, I thought it was already passed under the Labour Party government, and it was just needing to be assented. But I think either way, I think it's important that there is some greater transparency in the whole issue of procurement. I think we're way over time already.
Yes,
unfortunately, I would definitely have to invite you back here, Dr. Hilaire, to discuss Brexit, which is coming up very soon, and you can share with us your thoughts, especially as a former High Commissioner to London.
Yes.
But any parting words from you?
Well, I think, Calix, I just want to remind St. Lucians that we must not let up on demanding government, whichever government, exercise good governance, that there is transparency and there is accountability. It doesn't matter whether it's UWP or Labour Party. The citizens of the country must always demand such, and that we need to be open to analyze issues and to be able to respond to them in a way which can ensure the best interests of our country. And like I say, it doesn't matter whether it's Labour Party or UWP. We must demand good governance, accountability, and transparency. And it's the responsibility of the citizens to act as the watchdog of the performance of government. I mean, laws are in place, but people who are not honorable will not follow the laws. And then, it just makes it more difficult. But if the people are empowered, they can force action. And I believe that we have a golden opportunity now with all that this government is doing that is against good governance, against transparency, against accountability, for us to force the issue and cause subsequent governments to respect those fundamental tenets of democracy. And I think that is important for us not to degrade as a society that accepts corruption, accepts abuse of power.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ernest Hilaire, for being our guest.